Hello and welcome back to the Shooting Gallery minigame tutorial for Ren'Py, part 3, and let's just jump straight back into it, shall we? In the last video, we created all of the targets and placed them inside of the Shooting Gallery screen. In this video, we are going to create the animations for the targets when they are in their adult state, as well as when they have been shot with a cork gun. To do that, we're going to use this target update function, which we have created for the target spritemanager object. And this function is going to automatically run whenever the spritemanager object needs to update or when it has first been shown on the screen. And to do that, we are first of all going to create a for loop, which is going to iterate through each of the sprites inside of the target sprites list. And then depending on if the target has been hit or not, we're going to animate them accordingly. So let's go ahead and create this for loop. So we're going to remove this pass statement. And then we're going to say for target in target sprites. And for this for loop, we're also going to need to keep a track of what the current iteration is. So we're going to make sure that we are enumerating this target sprites list. So we're going to say enumerate, like so. And then we're going to add an extra variable for this for loop, which we can call li, like so, which stands for loop index. And then instead of here, we're going to check if the current target in the for loop has been hit or not, because if it has, then we're going to go ahead and animate it accordingly. So we're going to say if target dot hit is equal to true, and then we need to check what the current frame is for the animation so that we can switch it to the next frame. So that we're going to first of all start with the first frame. So we're going to say if target dot current frame is equal to 1. So if the target's current frame is currently the first one, then we're going to switch it to the second one instead. And to do that, we are first of all going to need to define a new image that the target sprite is going to use. So for that, we're going to create a new variable that we can call I, which stands for image. And then we're going to say is equal to image. And then we need to give the path to the image that we want to use. So we're going to say images target 1.2.png, like so. And now we need to create a transform, which is going to make sure that this image has the correct size according to its row. And to do that, we first of all need to determine on which row that this target is on. So we're going to create a new line. And then we're going to say if target dot row is equal to 1. So if the target is on the first row, then we're going to create a transform that is going to make sure that this image has the correct zoom factor. So we're going to say t is equal to transform, and then child is equal to I, which is the image that we just created, and then zoom is equal to, and to add the correct zoom value to this transform, we're going to refer to the variables we created earlier in the start label that we called target row 1 zoom, target row 2 zoom, and target row 3 zoom. And since this is the first row, we're going to use the first variable. So we're going to say target row 1 zoom, like so. And then we'll do the other rows as well. So we're going to create a new line. And then we're going to say elif target row is equal to 2. And then we'll say t is equal to transform. And then child is equal to I. And zoom is equal to, and this time we're going to use the target row 2 zoom. So we're going to say target row 2 zoom, like so. And then let's do the last row. So we're going to say elif target row is equal to 3. And then t is equal to transform. Child is equal to I. And zoom is equal to target row 3 zoom. And now since we are switching the image from the first frame to the second frame, we also need to make sure that we are updating the current frame attribute. So we're going to create a new line. And then make sure that we are in the same line as these if statements, like so. And then we're going to say target dot current frame is equal to 2, like so. And now we need to make sure that we are updating the target sprite's child to use this new transform instead of the old one. So for that, we're going to say target dot set child. So we're using the set child method that is available for a sprite object in order to give it a new child. And inside of these brackets, we're going to add the transform. So we're going to say t, like so. So now we have made sure that if the target's current frame is 1, that we are switching it to the second frame instead. And now we're going to check for the other frames as well, so that we can switch them accordingly. So we're going to create a new line, and then go inwards once in the indentations, like so. And now instead of having to rewrite the whole section of code again, we can go ahead and copy paste this first if statement. And just make sure that you are truly pasting this in the same indentation as the other if statement right here. Otherwise you're going to get some errors. And then instead of checking if the current frame is 1, we're going to check for the second frame. So we're going to add a 2 there. And if that is true, then we're going to switch the image to the third frame instead. So we're going to say 3 instead of this image path, like so. And then we can leave all of the other things the same, except for this current frame attribute, which should say 3, like so. And then we'll check for the third frame, so we can go ahead and copy paste this, like so. And then we'll check if the current frame is instead 3. And if it is, then we want to change the image to the fourth instead. So we're going to say 4, like so. And then we'll go down to this line and change the current frame to the fourth one, like so. So now these are technically all of the images that we have available for the target to be animated with. However, this is going to be a pretty plain animation that is just going to animate from the first frame to the last one, which is the fourth frame. So to make the animation look a little bit more realistic, we're going to repeat the third and fourth frame again. So to do that, we're going to create another if statement underneath here, so we can paste what we already have copied right here, like so. So now we're going to check if the current frame is 4 instead of 2. So we're going to say 4, and then we can leave the path as it is because we want to go back to the third frame after we have been at the fourth frame. And then we need to change the current frame attribute to say 5 instead. And then we'll do the last frame for the animation. So we can go ahead and copy paste this underneath here, like so. And then instead of checking for the fourth frame up here, we're going to check for the fifth frame. So we'll add a 5 instead of there. And now we need to make sure that we're switching the image to the last frame, which is the fourth frame. So we're going to add a 4 instead of there, like so. And now for the current frame attribute, we're actually going to leave it at the value of 5, as this is going to be the last frame of the animation. So now you can see how we are using the current frame attribute in order to control the progression of the animation. So we have determined that there should be 5 frames for the animation, and some of these frames are going to use the same image as the other. And that is just to limit the amount of images that we're using, since some of the frames are going to use images that are identical to the other. So once the target has been hit and has animated through all of the animation frames, then we need to make sure that we are resetting the hit attribute for the target back to false, as the target has finished being hit and should now return back to its idle state. So to do that, we're going to create a new line underneath here, and then we're going to say target.hit is equal to false, like so. And now we're going to create the idle animation for the targets, which is going to run whenever the target has not been hit. So as long as this if statement up here is false, which means that the current target in the for loop has not been hit, then we're going to play this idle animation. So we're going to create a new line underneath here, and then we're going to go inwards 2 times, so 1, 2 in the indentations, like so. And then we're going to say else. And now inside of this else statement, we want to first of all check which direction that the target's idle animation is set to. And for that, we're going to check the idle animation direction attribute that we have given to each target. And we're going to start by checking if that attribute has been set to up. And if it has, then we're going to play the flipping up animation. So we're going to say if target.idle animation direction is equal to up, like so. And then inside of this if statement, we're going to do what we did before, which is namely to check what the current frame is for the animation. And since we're going to be flipping the target up instead of down, a logical place to start is to check if the current frame is the 5th frame and then work our way backwards to the 1st frame. So we're going to say if target.current frame is equal to 5. Now since we're going to flip the target back up, we don't really need to animate the bounce that happens when the target is hit. So we're not going to repeat the 3rd and 4th frame for this animation, but we're going to go straight from the 4th image to the 3rd one instead. So for that, we're going to say I is equal to image, and then the path is going to be images target 1 3.png, like so. And then we're going to check for the row that the target is in and set its zoom property to the correct value. And for that we can just go ahead and copy paste what we have done before. So these lines up here, we can copy paste that underneath here, like so. And now we need to make sure that we are setting the current frame attribute to the correct value for this target. So we'll create a new line and then go inwards one step in the indentations. And then we're going to say target dot current frame is equal to 3. And then we're going to set the child of the target sprite to this new transform. So we're going to say target dot set child and then t instead of that, like so. And now let's do the next frame. So we can copy paste this if statement underneath, like so. And now we just gotta make sure that we are changing this if to say elif instead. And then we want to check if the current frame is 3 instead of 5, like so. So in this case we're skipping to check for the 4th frame, as we're going directly from the 5th to the 3rd frame instead. And then the image for this is going to be the 2nd one, so we're going to say 2 instead of that. And then we're going to make sure that we're changing this current frame attribute to say 2 instead, like so. And now let's do the next one. So we can copy paste this elif statement, like so. And again, make extra sure that you are pasting it in the same indentation as the rest of these if statements. And then for this, we're going to check if the current frame is 2 instead of 3. And then we're going to change the image to say 1 instead of 2. And then we have to change this current frame attribute to say 1 as well, like so. So now when this idle animation has finished playing the up animation, we want to make sure that we are setting the idle animation direction attribute to down instead, so that it's going to flip back down. So for that, we're going to create a new line. And then we're going to say target dot idle animation direction is equal to down, like so. And now we're going to create the animation of the targets flipping down in their idle state. And to do that, we're going to create a new line underneath here, like so. And then we're going to go inwards 2 times in the indentations, like so. And then we're going to say elif target dot idle animation direction is equal to down. Now because we're going to animate the targets flipping down, we can reuse the code that we created earlier for when a target has been hit. So we're going to scroll back up right here, and we're going to copy all of this code up until here. So from the first if target current frame is 1 to the last, which is this if target current frame is equal to 5. So we're going to go ahead and copy that, and then we'll scroll back down into here, and then we'll paste that in here, like so. And then we're just going to make sure that we're changing the idle animation direction attribute for the targets to go back to the up animation when it has reached the 5th frame. So we're going to create a new line underneath here, and we're going to say target dot idle animation direction is equal to up, like so. So now the targets in their idle state should alternate between these 2 animations. But now in order for these animations to work correctly, we need to make sure that this function is continuously running. Because otherwise what's going to happen is this function is going to run and the for loop is going to iterate through all of the targets once to animate them to the next frame. But then the animation is going to stop there. So in order to make this function continuously run, we're going to use a return statement together with a value that represents how many seconds the function should wait for until it should run again. And this return statement we're going to add after the for loop has finished, to make sure that all of the targets has a chance of animating. So once the for loop is done, then we're going to make sure that this function runs again. And to do that, we're going to make sure that we are creating a few empty lines underneath this last line. And then we're going to go inwards 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is going to place us at the same indentation as the for loop, as you can see right here. And then we're going to say return 0, like so. So now we're making sure that this function is going to run again immediately after all of the code inside of the function has run. But now we also need to take into account some of the other attributes that we have created for the targets, such as the animation time and the uptime and downtime attributes. Now for the animation time attribute, we're going to use this in order to keep track of how long a target has been animating for, and we're going to do this by adding 1 millisecond to the attribute every time the function runs. So let's go ahead and do that first. So we're going to create a few empty lines underneath this target set child line, and then we're going to go inwards in the indentations 3 times, so 1, 2, 3, and this is going to put us in the same indentation as the outer else and if statement inside of the for loop, so in the same line as this else statement right here and this if statement right here. And then we're going to say target dot animation time plus equals 0.01, like so. So now every time this for loop runs inside of this function, we're going to add 1 millisecond to each target animation time attribute. So now we're going to use the value that this animation time attribute is referring to for each target in order to determine if a target can flip up or flip down according to the uptime and downtime attributes. And to do that, we can scroll back up until we find the first animation for the idle state, which is this up animation. And inside of here, we're going to create a new line, like so. And here, we're going to check if the animation time for the current target in the for loop is more or equal to the downtime attribute's value. And the reason why we're checking against the downtime attribute is because we only want to flip the target up if the target has been down for enough time according to the downtime attribute. So for that, we're going to say if target dot animation time is more or equal to target dot downtime, like so. And now we need to make sure that we are indenting all of the relevant code below this if statement. So that is going to be from this line right here up until this line right here. So that is all of the code underneath this if statement that we just created up until this else if statement right here. So now we're going to indent this code once, like so. And then we'll do the down animation as well. So we can scroll down a little bit, and then we'll create a new line underneath here. And then we'll do the same thing as before, but this time we're going to compare the animation time attribute to the uptime attribute. So we're going to say if target dot animation time is more or equal to target dot uptime, like so. And then we'll indent all of the relevant code underneath here. So we're going to select the second if statement right here, all the way down to here. And then we'll indent this code once, like so. And now we're going to make sure that we are slowing down the animations a little bit by adding some frame delays to certain frames. And we're going to do that by comparing how much animation time that has passed for each target. And we're going to start with the first animation that is going to be triggered whenever a user has hit a target with a cork gun. So we're going to scroll back up to the start of this function. Right here, we were checking if target hit is equal to true. And in here, we want to make sure that we are adding some delays when we are switching from the third image to the fourth image right here, as well as when we are switching from the fourth image back to the third image right here, as well as when we are switching back from the third frame to the fourth frame right here. So essentially, we're going to add some delays to the frames which are emulating the target bouncing as it has been hit. So for this first if statement right here, we're going to add an extra condition which is going to look like this. And target dot animation time is more or equal to 0.1, like so. So that means as long as this target's current frame is the third frame and the animation time that has elapsed for this target is more or equal to 0.1 seconds. So this if statement is eventually going to be evaluated to true as the animation time that has passed for the target has reached 0.1 seconds. And that means that the previous frame, which contains the third image, is going to stay on the screen for a little bit longer until the animation time has hit 0.1 seconds. And then it's going to switch from the third frame into the fourth frame. And then we'll do the same thing with the next switch, so down here. So here we're going to say and target dot animation time is more or equal to 0.12. So this if statement is going to evaluate to true once the current frame of the target is the fourth one and the animation time that has elapsed is more or equal to 0.12 seconds. And then we'll do the last one right here. And here we're going to say and target dot animation time is more or equal to 0.13, like so. But you can of course experiment with these values to see what you like the best for your animations. but these values I have found works good for this tutorial. And now we're going to go back down into the idle animations for the target. So right here, and we're going to start with the up animation for the idle state. And in here we're going to add some frame delays as we are switching from the third image to the second image, so right here, as well as when we are switching from the second image to the first image, right here. But the conditions we're going to add to these else if statements are going to look a little bit different than we did before, because here we also need to take into account how much time that has passed according to the downtime attribute. Because here we're checking if the target's animation time attribute value is more or equal to the target's downtime attribute's value. So in order to add a delay as we are switching between the different frames, we're going to have to add an extra amount of time to the downtime attribute's value. So for that we're going to say and target dot animation time is more or equal to target dot down time plus 0.1, like so. So now only if the target's animation time attribute is more or equal to the target's downtime attribute's value plus 0.1 seconds can we switch from the third image to the second one. And then we'll do the next one down here. So we're going to say and target animation time is more or equal to target dot down time plus 0.12, like so. And then let's do the down animation for the idle state. So right here. And in here we're going to add the frame delays to the same areas as we did for the hit animation. So here we were switching from the third image to the second image. So we're going to say and target dot animation time is more or equal to, and for this we need to take into account the uptime attribute's value. So we're going to say target dot up time plus 0.1, like so. And then we'll do the next one down here. So we're going to say and target dot animation time is more or equal to target dot up time plus 0.12. And then the last one down here. So we're going to say and target animation time is more or equal to target dot up time plus 0.13, like so. So now we have added delays as we're switching between different frames for all of the animations available. Now before we continue with the code, I want to correct one small mistake I've done earlier on, and that is namely down here in this line where we're saying that the target's idle animation direction should be equal to up. We should of course not use two equal signs when we are assigning a value to something. We should only use one. So we're going to remove one of those, like so. And now we're going to make sure that we are resetting the animation time attribute back to 0 at the end of each animation. So we can start with this down animation first. So we're going to add a new line underneath here, for example. And then we're going to say target dot animation time is equal to 0. And we're doing this to make sure that the next time these idle animations are going to play, that they are going to work correctly. So we can go ahead and copy this and paste it into the other animations as well. So we're going to scroll back up until we find the up animation right here. So in this last frame right here, we're going to add the line that we just copied. So we can create a new line underneath here, and then we'll paste this like so. And then we'll do the same thing for the hit animation. So let's scroll back up here. So in this last section of the animation, we can go ahead and do the same thing. So we can add a new line underneath here and then paste that there. But we're also going to add this line at the start of this animation when we're switching from the first frame to the second frame. So we're going to scroll back up to here, and then we're going to add this line just underneath this if statement, like so. So this is going to make sure that the animations are going to work correctly. Another good thing that we should do is to make sure that we are changing these if statements right here and right here all the way down after this first if statement to instead say elif, as these are if statements that should only run if the first if statement is not true. So for that we're going to say el so that it says elif, and then we'll do the same thing for the other ones. So we'll say el, and here as well, and here as well. And then we'll scroll down until we get to the down animation right here. And we're going to add the same right here. So So we're going to say elif underneath this if statement. So we're going to say elif there, and the same for the other ones. Like so. So now let's go ahead and save our changes and launch the game to see what this looks like. So now that we're back inside of the game again, we're going to go ahead and check if the targets are animating properly. So we're going to enter into the minigame by clicking here. So here we can see that each target is flipping up after a certain amount of time, depending on the value that is stored inside of the downtime attribute. And then we can also see that they are flipping back down after a certain amount of time, depending on the uptime attribute. So now we know that this is working correctly. So in the next video, we're going to make sure that we can shoot a cork bullet towards the targets to try and hit them. And then we're going to implement a score system as well as a countdown timer. So I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.